Fairy Garden, Fairies of the Four Seasons, created and illustrated by Tom Cross, written by Constance Barclay Lewis. Fairy Garden. Fairy Garden, Fairies of the Four Seasons, created and illustrated by Tom Cross, written by Constance Barclay Lewis. Contents: Spring, Summer, Autumn, Winter. Garden entrance. Half a human world away, long before, once upon a time, fairies would spend the livelong day romping over countryside sublime. But bit by bit the humans came encroaching on their fairy ground, and fairies could not play the same with mortals lumbering all around. The fairies soon felt sore displaced. They had no other place to go. They couldn't get rid of the human race. What would they do? They didn't know. And so the fairy council met for several days and then some hours, deciding that the surest bet was to make their homes among the flowers. Each fairy chose its own sweet bloom, so that flower and fairy together made magic, music, sweet perfume, and sunshine, whatever the weather. Come enter the garden of magical pleasure, where fairies frolic and flowers sway to the music of wind chimes. Come at your leisure, a treasure of magic beckons you to stay. Sunbeams and moonbeams will show you the way. Spring. O spring that opens wide its arms, embracing magic fairy charms. Spring fairies open wide the door to fun and sun and so much more. Spring gardens. If ever was a reason for fairies to sing, it must be the coming of sweet-scented spring. For as the snow melts and wind loses its chill, spring fairies know soon they will frolic at will. Among lilies and daisies and pansies galore, bright with delight of the joy that's in store, as cool springs rain with warm spring sun, say the frost and the snow and the cold are now done. The tinkle of wind chimes will hide the soft sound of fleet fairy feet scampering over the ground, preparing fresh buds in their garden for spring, as they cry out with joy, let sun and fun ring. In the silvery splendor of the full moon in spring, listen closely to hear Lily of the Valley ring. If in your heart you believe the stories fairies tell, then Lily Fairy will allow you to hear chimes of lily bells. Who but the lily of the valley fair could so lightly and happily ring in the spring? The violet is the flower of the fairy queen, who can speak of things to come and speak of sights unseen. These secrets she shares, but just in your dreams, as she teaches that life can be more than it seems. Does the tiny bloom of the violet bob from the breeze, or is it the violet fairy who beckons you to pluck a burst of spring's violet blossoms for luck? Is it the whistle of the wind that scatters the dandelion, or the sneeze of the dandelion fairy when the soft seeds tickle her nose? If your eyes are quick and the light is just right, you may see a dandelion fairy as she takes flight. Then blow her flower seeds. If they come back in your eyes, expect important news or a wondrous surprise. Daisy fairy, so pristine, whose eyes are first to greet the day, can her arrival on the scene mean spring has come and means to stay? The picture of true innocence as she arrives upon the earth, Daisy fairy represents spring's arrival and rebirth. The innocent love of a flower child is Daisy fairy's gift to you. Pansies bring thoughts of love and loved ones, for it is in love which the pansy fairy delights in dwelling. She embraces the warmth of the sun above as she prepares her potions of potent spring love. Pansy fairy takes great delight in aiding Cupid when his arrows take flight. Golden as the morning sun, playful as a gusty breeze, Buttercup Fairy finds her fun in healing human hearts with ease. Wilful and full of whimsy, she is cheerful and quite charming. Don't be fooled that her bud is flimsy, for her bloom's beauty is disarming. The beauty of the Buttercup Fairy will melt your heart. Exotic as an island lush, playful as the warm spring wind, hypnotic as a fairy's hush, is this little fairy friend. Shy but quick and sprightly, it is difficult to see her, but if you tread quite lightly, you might see the fairy Bougainvillea. Bougainvillea Fairy scatters stardust to paint her blossoms rich, ripe colors. Iris Fairy throws open his arms and his blooms as he leaps joyfully into spring. A joyous jolt of blue and gold as Iris Fairy leaps to view, a fantastic sight now to behold as he offers his brilliant blooms to you. A link on earth from man to God, a messenger from God to man, a rainbow blooming out of sod to signal spring has come again. The pungent blossoms of the flowers close around Water Lily Fairy at noon to protect her from the sun's hot rays. A symbol of earth and water, brilliant fire and floating air, as the flower of all elements, no water vessel can compare. With her graceful petals, sails, and heady sweet perfume, Water Lily Fairy sets sail at morning, but she docks mid-afternoon. Summer. The golden months of summertime are rich with warmth and breezes. The fairies fly into the sky and bring the light that pleases. Summer gardens. O lazy, hazy, daisy sun, who signals summer has begun, and brightly slows the pace of day, in a slow, romancing, languid way. What shadow do you cast past noon, when your rays diminish none too soon? Is that a fairy shadow small, that flits against the garden wall, who dances in the summer heat, with budding wings and fleeting feet? This must be the summer fairy dance, calling all to love and sweet romance. Thus summer fairies dance and sing, as tidings of joyful summer they bring. Reaching high above the garden bower, he mimics the sun in look and power, shining over all others in radiant splendor, demanding that others to him now surrender. To the birds who eat seeds from out of his hand, Sunflower Fairy represents what is grand. He's generous, clever, cocky, and fun, to birds the most regal fairy under the sun. At high noon you may see the Sunflower Fairy catching the sun's most perfect rays. Lovely Larkspur Fairy, so graceful and so shy, is it that you're wary of those who pass you by? When butterflies soon come to call, will you offer them a rest? Are you interested at all in feathering a young bird's nest? Larkspur Fairy dusts the dew as she lightly dances among the blossoms. Daylily Fairy wastes no time, for her flower's beauty lasts just one day. She basks in summer sun sublime, and then at night she fades away. But in that day she's busy, as she plans for what's in store. Next summer the garden's in a tizzy, for where she once was one, she's four. The Daylily Fairy embraces the day with a grin and a promise to make the most of each minute. Who can tell the story of the bloom that closes early? For the fairy Morning Glory wakes with the dew so pearly, and she keeps herself quite occupied taming flowers as they grow. But because she wants not to be spied, she vanishes by noon, you know. Morning Glory Fairy rises early and has finished her work and play by noon. Poppy Fairy gathers starlight for potions that bring sleepiness and contentment. Poppy Fairy casts her spell on those seeking consolation. She makes them sleep till they are well, forgetting tribulation. She pulls stars from heaven's splendor, mixing silver stars with summer gold. At her beauty, butterflies surrender and do whatever they are told. Clover Fairy isn't easy to sight. Her moves are quick and her steps are light, but she's helpful to those who fondly desire to set their true love's heart on fire. If someone in love has the notion that he might be helped by a fairy potion. He should put Clover Fairy to the test. Tell her your wish, and she'll do the rest. If you're thinking of romance, you may be under a Clover Fairy's spell. As yellow and black are light and dark, Black-eyed Susan Fairy is the garden's spark, who exposes emotions and sheds light on the soul, for bringing light into darkness is the fairy's goal. Close your eyes and bury your head in a bouquet of black-eyed Susans. Her fairies will whisper words of enlightenment and encouragement. Chicory Fairy dresses in flowing silk and waltzes with the dragonfly. Dressed in silk that spiders spin, crowned with petals from chicory's blooms, Chicory Fairy brings peace within. Her laughter leaves no room for gloom. As radiant as a princess fair, kind hostess to the dragonfly, her steps are lighter than the air, her voice is softer than a sigh. If the Rose Fairy awakens before the last dewdrop has dried, he may spend the rest of the day with a frown on his face. Quiet, please, don't make a sound, for within this rosebud, bedded down, is sweet Rose Fairy, so pristine, the most enchanting fairy ever seen. He sleeps so very sweetly, among rose petals bundled neatly. The slightest sound will make him stir, for human noise he can't endure. Autumn. Autumn fairies fly at will, bringing on crisp autumn chill. The pleasure of these sassy sprites is found in mild days and cool nights. Autumn gardens. When lazy days begin to lose the steam that brings on summer blues, the garden then begins to hope for signs of fall's kaleidoscope. Yellow and orange from the summer sun melt and then begin to run down into leaves of maple and oak, which gives us the colors of autumn's cloak. Autumn fairies fill the air, flitting freely here and there. A chill within the garden brings the frenzy of fall fairy wings. Aster Fairy, small and pink, with a gleeful sparkle in her eye, is here and gone before you blink, soaring up into the sky. Aster Fairy shares a bond with galaxies that twinkle bright. Of shining stars she's very fond, and throws them kisses in the night. Aster Fairy has a twinkle in her eye that reflects her favorite stars. No human can be sullen under the spell of Fairy Mullen. He sleeps upon the downy blooms and dreams amidst its light perfume. If a chill should come at night, he covers himself with its leaves of white. Precious mullen, fairy small, good luck to those who you enthrall. The downy leaves of the mullen make a midday nap irresistible. Chrysanthemum Fairy promises long life to those who tend her flowers. Playful and gleeful, fully childlike to some, is the charming, disarming Fairy Chrysanthemum. With a spring in her step and a flap of her wing, this funny fairy delights in most anything. The Marigold Fairy, who delights in laughter, loves showing mere mortals how to find happy ever after. A jam made of marigolds, when it touches the lips, spreads the laughter of this fairy from toes to fingertips. Marigold Fairy bursts forth in fiery colors at the sun's hottest hours. Bluebell Fairy drapes herself in the velvety folds of her indigo. Pure and dainty, soft and mild, is the fairy Bluebell child. Reluctant to come into view, she shies away from me and you. But though she hates to be revealing, she makes her blossoms so appealing that she must take refuge there inside the blue blossoms where she loves to hide. Brambles tugging at the pants of hikers walking through the woods is Blackberry Fairy welcoming those who find her berries good. Tart and sweet she makes her fruit, which grows in woods so juicy wild. She's generous and loves to share this fair, flirtatious fairy child. The blackberry briar tugging at your ankle may be Blackberry Fairy entreating you to stay. This flower spins its many charms with spells spun from small fairy arms. Her fairy flies ever higher, faster, to make magic for New England blue aster. Though her name is long, she's very small. It's rare to ever see her at all. A brilliant burst of blue and gold, she's too clever to behold. Prepare to surrender to New England blue aster's fairy spell. Thistle Fairy lightly strokes her prickly thistle flower. The one most likely to blow the whistle in retaliation is the thistle. This flower can be quite severe, representing that which is austere. In contrast, Thistle Fairy flies to spread good cheer through autumn skies. Compared to thistles, pricks, and such, Thistle Fairy has a tender touch. Playful goldenrod fairy tickles the butterflies and makes their wings quiver. The tiny fairy goldenrod is quick to give a playful nod to all the happy joys of fall, which delight, excite, ignite, enthrall. Why is it, do you now suppose, he loves to brush against your nose? It's either that he likes to tease, or likes the sound of a human sneeze. Winter. Winter winds and winter snow bring winter fairies on the go. Winter fairies find delight in bringing warmth to winter white. Winter gardens. Oh, thrilling chill of winter wind that says fall now comes to an end. Where are your fairies, blithe and bold, who laugh out loud at winter's cold? Where are they hiding, do you know? Are they buried under winter's snow? Oh no, not buried, not these sprites, who welcome frigid winter nights. They tend to winter's garden folly, poinsettia, primrose, and bright red holly. They travel on snowflakes from heaven to earth, and welcome winter's white rebirth. Ruby red on forest green, lush amidst snow's winter white, Holly Fairy may be seen feeding birds in winter's blight. No bigger than his fairy, he is difficult to see, but he's always making merry, and his joy can set you free. Holly in the house brings good cheer, good fortune, and the good nature of the Holly Fairy. Oh, glamorous ginger fairy, exotic and sublime, we would so much like to see you, if you could spare the time, but you seem so very busy, as you set the latest trend, with your passion for fairy fashion. Will your busyness never end? Red ginger fairy spins pink and red together to create a burst of fire against snow's winter white. The sweet smell in the evening of this lovely ruffled flower brings happiness and healing if one seeks its fairy power. She gathers up her blossoms into rainbow-like bouquet, and Carnation Fairy offers them to those who pass her way. Like a moth to a flame, one seeks out Carnation Fairy for enlightenment. Bright amid dull winter gray, when days are short and nights are long, she ushers in the holiday, her sweet voice raised in pixie song. Poinsettia Fairy blooms a vast array of rich red, rose, and pink. She sets many other blooms aghast, for she cares not what others think. Poinsettia Fairy spins holiday magic for all her friends who come to call. Primrose Fairy has the power to reveal the invisible world to those who trust in her. Softer than the sweetest dove, as silent as the falling snow, Primrose Fairy brings first love to those whom love does not yet know. She's the picture of perfection. One would certainly suppose winter carries great affection for the lovely fairy Primrose. For humor few fairies can compare with the fairy of the prickly pear. This funny fairy loves to jest, poking fun at all the rest. Though she may try, it is in vain. Her needling she can't restrain. Her colleagues know she means no harm, for her pricks are light and her heart is warm. Prickly Pear Fairy plays in the soft bloom of her flower amidst the sharp prickly cactus leaves. It must be said that there are some bewitched by the fairy of the natal plum. A friend to all who happen by, he's funly, friendly, fast and spry. The darling of the insect clan is this charming fairy man. He tends his bloom with a careful touch, brushing off cold snows and such. Natal Plum Fairy is quite friendly and often invites friends over for tea. The fair Hibiscus Fairy, a dainty flower child, spreads rich rainbows of color as through the tropics she runs wild. Her travels create quite a buzz as bumblebees surround her. Their unabashed love for her never ceases to astound her. Hibiscus Fairy stops briefly to rest and chat with the busy bees. The heady scent of her flower surrounds Confederate Jasmine Fairy with a golden glow. Confederate Jasmine Fairy knows for sure, wherever her flowers grow, that perfume will quickly fill a room, chasing out cold winter gloom. This fairy has not one small care. She's sweet, completely kind and fair. Just follow her heady, fragrant scent to quickly determine just where she went. What of fairies, what of flowers, what of spending countless hours in a fairy garden bright, with smiles and mischievous delight? Once here, you know you'll often yearn to over and over again return to the magic of happy ever after and the music of pixie fairy laughter.